space. The find wait, am I allowed to say that? Like, if this video gets like monetized in the future, will I get copyright?
Greetings, viewers. Welcome to another fan art drawing time-lapse video by yours truly, Aziz Draws. And yes, this one took a while too. I don't know, I'm assuming my motivation to upload videos has diminished. That would probably be my only explanation as to why I haven't really been posting. But that does not mean, however, I haven't stopped drawing. Yeah, if you follow me on either Twitter or Instagram, then you've seen my recent drawings. I hope to upload time-lapse videos for some of them. This one, the Star Trek. And I will probably upload a time-lapse video of the Trunks drawing and the Rock Lee drawing, because I like those. I like those drawings. And yeah, I'll probably get more views on the Dragon Ball one anyway. So it's a win-win. But yeah, as I mentioned before, I'm drawing Star Trek. Here, it was a request or a suggestion by someone I know. Her name is Amanda Hufford. I believe her Twitter account name is Just a Clippy. Yeah, Just a Clippy. But yeah, no, she's chill, and I figured it'd be a nice challenge for me to see if I can do a more dramatic perspective for my drawings, because typically with my drawings they're fairly basic in perspective and composition, and so for this one I wanted to challenge myself with not only multiple subjects but a complex composition holding those subjects. So we have about, I believe, 8 members of the Starship Enterprise in this drawing, and then we have like this kind of surveillance camera fisheye lens thing going on. And so I thought that'd be fun to try out. Was it difficult? Yeah. Because I was on this sketch for a serious number of hours. I think I had streamed it when I was sketching it, and that just took like maybe 3-4 hours. I think maybe 5 if I remember correctly. But yeah, if me knowing this sketch took a while, I knew the rest of this drawing would as well. So as you can see here, I've begun coloring the drawing itself. And so when I was doing this, I recently downloaded Clip Studio Paint, and I wasn't sure if I was comfortable enough to start doing a massive project like this on Clip Studio Paint just yet. So I said, you know what, let me saw on Photoshop for a little bit. But as if it was a sign from above, Photoshop started lagging very, very badly. I don't know, maybe it's because I ran out of storage at that time, or maybe something was running in the background. I don't know. But when I tell you, when I was working on this, I got flashbacks of when I was using my laptop back in high school. Not fun. But anyway, when that happened, I basically was saying to myself, okay, after I finish color blocking, I'm going to go on Clip Studio Paint, because the way I normally do my color blocking on Photoshop was I would fill the entire layer with a bucket tool and then go to the layer mask and invert it and just start coloring on that mask itself. When I was working on Clip Studio Paint at the time, I didn't know how to do that just yet, and so I wasn't really in the mood to find out right now. But now, after weeks have passed since I drew this, I've gotten more familiar with the software Clip Studio Paint, and so I'm able to do stuff like that on that software as well. But earlier that wasn't the case, so I was still on Photoshop. And then after I was like spending minutes just waiting for commands to operate, I said, you know what? It's time. I have to go on Clip Studio Paint. So, as you can see based on the UI, I am no longer on Photoshop, and I am in fact in Clip Studio Paint. Yeah, for this software, I really do enjoy the brush strokes. I feel that it responds better with my tablet than Photoshop does. A prime example is when I do my hatching, you know, one of the more defining parts of my drawings. When I'm on Photoshop, usually what happens is the brushstroke kind of ends. And what I mean by that is when I do a stroke on the tablet, at some pressure, it just cuts off. I'm sure I can edit it, whatever. But when I went on the Clip Studio Paint and I did the same thing, I realized the cutoff point is much later, meaning I can do very, very thin hatching lines. And I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, yeah, you can edit your brushes to make sure that doesn't happen. You can configure your software. But the fact that it was able to do that from the get-go was really cool to me. And I was like, okay, I guess we're just going to stay on Clip Studio Paint now when it comes to brush strokes. Another thing I tried to do here was experiment with other brushes. Primarily, yes, I deal with the alias version of brushes. But this time I said, let me try something else. So I thought a really cool experiment would be trying to create the cloth material with another brush. And so if you look at their uniforms, I'm still hatching. But what I do is not only do I cross hatch, but I cross hatch with a pencil tool. And not just the pencil tool that you see on Photoshop that I normally use, but this is an actual like pencil tool. Like it's simulated to look like a pencil rendering. And so I figured since it has that grainy soft texture to it, I thought that would be a good way to simulate cloth in this drawing. And I think the results came out pretty well. For everything else, I decided to just use the alias brush, even with the skin. The skin, I had this very strange technique of hatching it. Basically, what I would do is I would go in with linear hatching. And then it wasn't necessarily cross hatching, but it was more of me kind of swirling the strokes around, kind of like who was it? There was someone on Instagram, I saw somebody do it. It was this dude. He was rendering leather, like an industrial design sketch. He was rendering leather, and I thought he had a really cool technique where he would shade with a gradient, and then he would come back and just start kind of scribbling almost. Like he would swirl his pen in a way that would create overlapping lines, and because of that it created these kind of leather-like creases, and I thought that was a really cool technique. So I kind of did something very similar to the skin to see if it would create that kind of texture, but not as in depth as leather is, because leather is skin as well, so just animal skin. So I figured with a human you probably can do something very similar, but you just have to be a bit softer with the application. And so when I tried that out, I was like, oh wait, this kind of works. So I thought that was pretty cool to discover. The more times I mess around with textures, the more I like gain knowledge of just like using one brush, which I think is really cool. But as I said before, I did try out a little bit more stuff this time around. For the background, I knew I couldn't just hash my way out of that, as that was a significant piece of this puzzle. The characters themselves weren't as bad as, say, the Avengers or JoJo drawings, because the subjects weren't the same size, so I didn't have to put the same level of detail for all of them. As you can see here, Kirk and Ura are primarily the biggest ones, and then it goes to Spock, and then Scotty and Bones, then it goes to Chapel, and then it goes to Sulu and Chekhov. And Sulu and Chekhov are the smallest subjects within this composition. They do have chairs behind them, so I guess that makes them a little complex, but overall it wasn't too bad. But yeah, like I said, the background was the challenging aspect of it, because I couldn't just hatch my way out of that. Eventually what I decided to do was, after I finished shading in the characters, I added the shadows to make sure their bodies were interacting properly with the background. But once I was done with that, I went in and just started kind of thinking about how am I going to do the background, And I ended up doing gradients as well as texture filters and things that would help get my message across, that hey, this is a floor, or hey, this is their background, without destroying my well-being. Yeah. So I thought it was a pretty interesting challenge, this whole drawing as a whole. I thought it was really neat, because not only was I using a new software, but I was also experimenting with other ways to get a message across, get my composition to accurately represent itself. And I think it went fairly well. I also tried a new perspective, as mentioned before. This was a very complex fisheye lens thing. I definitely want to try this more because it's not easy, but if you have the chance of pulling it off, getting it to represent a fisheye lens. If you do it right, it has a really cool effect. I mean, people look at it and they're like, whoa, the perspective. I mean, it's really cool. You can see here I'm using purple again as the base shadow. I don't know, I just like using purple as a shadow tone. It just looks cool. It just looks cool. But yeah, I also use reference photos. And if anyone was wondering, there's no way I could remember the bridge off the top of my head like that. So I did watch a few episodes, but there's no way I would have remembered the bridge like that. So yeah, I use reference photos just to give me an idea of what it's supposed to look like, where things located in that set piece, and I wanted to follow it fairly accurately, just so it's true to how it looked like in the show. I don't know if I took too many liberties with it. I don't think I did per se. I mean, I did make it bigger based off like the perspective of the whole composition, but it's pretty true. All right, and we are at the finish line of this drawing. You can see I'm adding the small details for the heads up displays and UIs and all that good stuff that you'd find on a spaceship. I started adding gradients for the floor and textures, all that good stuff, just to bring in this drawing to a close. Adding those fine details really helps with creating the sense of, hey, this is an environment that these people are interacting in. I also add a really cool watermark. You'll see that eventually. Yeah, I was a lot more loose when it came to just adding other stuff besides hatching for this drawing, simply because I'm not hatching that entire floor. Come on now. Maybe one day. Maybe one day when I've lost my sanity entirely and I'm just one of those madmen artists, I might do it. But yeah, like I said, I had a good time drawing this. I thought it was really, really good challenge. Will I do something like this later? Probably. Who knows? I try to challenge myself with these drawings. If I'm not challenging myself, then I'm not really going anywhere. So yeah, that is it. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you soon. Someday.